Gotham is ashes. Then you have my permission to die.
Bane. Why or how could I possibly have anything specific to say about this character? Or necessarily, why would I be making an entire video on exploring the depths on a character not shown as much in live action, or only in 2 movies? The whole point of me making this video and writing this is to really put us into perspective of who Bane is. This character is an overarching character in the Batman mythos, and yet no one seems to talk about him. Why is that? Bane is a very complex character similar to Batman, not just because of their character traits, but what makes them who they are. Bane and his story is not told very often in media, and his story is mostly told in comic books, which not everyone has access to. But there is one game that does really give the player insight on this character, and that game is Batman Arkham Origins. Now, I'm not going in depth on how this game is underrated or necessarily underappreciated, but the character development in this game is great. I do a lot of research and rewatch clips and videos specifically for this video. If you want to check these out, they will be all in the description below. Bane amongst many is a villain that isn't talked about as much as villains like Joker, Penguin, Riddler, and so on, but he serves a greater purpose, and so much more. We never know why Bane does what he does in film, and in that environment in which he is written, which in my personal opinion, they don't deliver this character. Bane resonates with Batman on some personal level. I believe Batman Arkham Origins delivered this beautifully and successfully, and how this character's arc is so much more than just what we are shown. How is Bane in Batman Arkham Origins described to break and have been broken? Bane was raised in a prison in most adaptations of this character. In mainstream DC Comics, Bane was raised in the Santa Prisca prison after his father, Edmund Durance, was a convict in Santa Prisca. While his father escaping the Santa Prisca court system, as many of you know, they had the child take his place, from his youth to his early life. As Bane grew up, he encountered many horrifying things. He had also committed his first murder at the age of 8 years old, when someone at the prison wanted to use/extort him for information about the system. While also Bane's natural abilities had given him an advantage, he had also learned things from books, and even created his own meditation. At a young age, this character was extremely intelligent, and had also learned 4 different languages during his early life, because of where the prison was located. He had learned English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Latin. He also had carried a teddy bear with him, which he named Osito, which if you had played the Batman Arkham Origins game, some of this history is briefly mentioned yet explained or shown in some ways in which you wouldn't know about this character if you hadn't read the comic books. Even in his early life, Bane was always tormented and tortured by this supposed bat creature that used to haunt him in his dreams, which he became immensely afraid of bats growing up, which we see him briefly mention this peace he will find if he kills Batman in Arkham Origins.
I've long waited for this moment. With your death, I will find peace.
Continuing on Bane's early life, he began claiming himself King of Pena Duro Prison, which again, if you did not know, is the name of the prison in Santa Prisca, calling himself Bane. Later on, an experimental venom is used on Bane for which he, amongst many test subjects, had taken this, which in the Arkham games is called Titan, another form of the same venom that increases strength. During testing, Bane nearly dies yet survives and kills all of the other test subjects. The only issue with this transformation is that he must take this Titan/venom formula every 12 hours, or Bane will experience some very nasty side effects, which creates the test tubes going directly to his brain. That over time eventually causes memory loss. Soon after learning about the city of Gotham, this intrigues him to go there not just because the city is ruled by fear, but because that fear in itself is Batman. Bane believed that Batman was that creature from his youth, tormenting him as a child, and taking him down would eventually help him find peace. This character in his story can resonate/give depth to the psychology of Batman, how his foes are so connected to him. Batman Arkham Origins did phenomenally at delivering this message, and not just through Joker, but Bane too. What this represents is a whole new side of Bane that most of us who haven't even touched a Batman comic can fully understand. The trailers of the game itself show sides of Batman's fear, and you may think, how can I tell what the trailers show us about a character with the very few shots we get? But within these shots or cinematic trailers, WB sets this up with immense amount of emotion, even just with animation, and the aspect was entirely on purpose. This game studio, with very limited experience, is really dedicated and in depth with story and storytelling, which even trailers can tell us a small segment of a story, and that is so beneficial to the game itself. While this game was a filler game in the Arkham series, it also wasn't. As I've previously stated, WB Games Montreal had delivered this point flawlessly and beautifully, better than some of the storylines and arcs we get in film today. Some people today believe that Batman Arkham Origins is a noir-based game, which in noir film, the character/story has resonated on an equal level. Noir delivers a dark environment, while some noir is shown or explained as a tragedy. Movies like The Joker, which mainly focuses on the psychology of one specific character and how that character affects the lives around them, while also having their own reasons or personal attachment to the message this movie is trying to send. The Joker has been talked about enough in many video essays, but this is just an example of noir film. While Batman Arkham Origins may be the only noir game I possibly know exists, while of course there are many more, this is the only one I know about that delivers or shows me on what noir film and the noir concept is all about. Batman Arkham Origins focuses on many versions of noir, some with psychology and crime or detective versions of this genre, while also there's no concrete version of noir, which in today's film is known as neo-noir, which there are many, but these are the only few I recognize. Someone I know had made a video about neo-noir and analyzing noir, which that video has an in-depth description. I'll be leaving the links in the description below. Also, while this noir game focuses on these key details, WB Games Montreal delivers this well. The cutscenes in the story completely make up for the similar or copy and paste game mechanics as Arkham City, but what this game amazingly delivers are characters that are overlooked constantly and not talked about as much, which of course that is Bane. This game directly delivers that certain fear and strength relationship built between these two characters, which has not been explained as much or in depth in any other media. While playing the game, we find out things about Bane's past and why he wants to kill Batman so desperately. We also find his torment while not seeing a version of Bane that can barely speak English. We see a smart, calculative Bane that knows what he's doing, strategically planning every move he makes, and that is all for one purpose: to find his peace. Batman's war on crime is never ending because he is affected by what happened to his parents. As he goes after criminals, with every punch he lands is intent and relief to find something he's so desperately been looking for, to find peace, and yet there is none. Batman quickly realizes this while fighting Bane.
I got a pulse. I'm gonna jumpstart your heart. Kill you again.
May you find the peace in death that you did not find in life.
I'm not looking for peace.
As much as the Joker and Batman are talked about and compared, we overlook Bane and Batman. In my opinion, Bane and Batman have more to do with each other, or maybe just as much as Batman and Joker do. Bane in himself has a never-ending battle with his own psyche, similar to Batman. Bane is on a search for peace, while growing up in a harsh environment, not by his own doing, but by his own family's doing wrong to him. He had suffered a lot of pain because of it. While being that young in a prison with legitimate grown convicts, he had created a visionary creature that tormented him, which again, this is what Batman represents. Knightfall book written by Chuck Dixon and illustrated by Jim Aparo was the perfect comic book example of describing these two characters. Half of Arkham's base and mainly Arkham Knight focuses on this comic, but just in a different scenario. We see two sides of the same coin more or less, struggling and fighting the battles for what they believe in. Bane in this comic book orchestrates a massive breakout in Arkham Asylum, containing many of Batman's rogues gallery, for example, Joker, Poison Ivy, Mad Hatter, Two-Face, Film Freak, The Ventriloquist, Scarecrow, Cornelius Stirk, and Firefly, which in this comic, as Bane searches and is waiting to break Batman, Bruce is searching and trying to apprehend as many criminals as he possibly can because that is his peace. Batman exhausts every bone in his body to the brink to restore order and justice to Gotham because that is his life's mission, to die and protect the city he loves so another boy in an alley won't experience what he had to. Bane, who had grown up in a harsh environment where he only knows kill or be killed, he tries to finally finish his life's mission in breaking the bat, which in this storyline really shows us how incredible the message given to us has shown us about these two characters, and how Batman Arkham Origins delivered this message to us. Arkham Origins delivered this not accidentally but intentionally. WB Games Montreal wanted every character's story to be told in a specific way. This wasn't just Batman's origins, but the villains too. We see a smarter and more calculative Bane who digests and exploits Batman because of his fear, his trauma, the thing that tormented him as a child. And what WB Games Montreal had done was show us how every villain, including Batman, is all broken. This is why Bane is so hellbent on breaking the bat, because Batman broke him first. The Dark Knight Rises is a film in media which discreetly shows us this sort of concept, but not as much as I'd like. Now, Christopher Nolan is a visionary. With every scene he shoots is shot with intent. With many people who have claimed this movie is the worst in the series, I think it's the most influential, and that is due to the fact of how these characters are written. While Christopher exceeded in some areas with developing Bane, there are still some visual flaws and clear ones that are left and are just empty. How are we supposed to judge film in-depthly? How can we as viewers objectively discover things about a character that a film in itself should have already told us? It shouldn't just be a marketing brand or to help commercial propaganda or sell toys, which most of it is, but film should objectively express creativity. With superhero film and genre not doing that today, leaves character development just untouched in film. Movies like Batman and Robin, Batman Forever, or Superman 3 and Superman 4, while also adding Superman Returns to the mix, don't take themselves or their objective narrative too seriously and are basically made for marketing that can cause a very big problem. With a character such as interesting as Bane is, to really have only been done completely correctly in a video game is absurd. Movies like The Dark Knight Rises, which in that movie we know somewhat about this character, but yet nothing at all. What does the film actually tell us about him? Why does he care so much about Talia? Or what exactly did he do to get exiled from the League of Shadows? How did Bane, or why was he in prison for most of his life? Why does he personally hate Batman, it seems? The movie acts as if these things are something we should automatically know about, but this is not the case. Now, don't get me wrong, Bane's portrayal in The Dark Knight Rises was delivered decently, but yet not enough. Aside from his endless speeches in a mask which we could barely understand what he's saying half the time, he really has no personal motive, except that he's just a henchman. But that is not how this character is at all. Smart, calculative, and fluent in 4 languages, while knowing different forms of martial arts. And while The Dark Knight Rises delivered that, it also doesn't, because this is the fall and rise of Batman. But Bane is just as much as part of that as our main protagonist in this story. I'm not saying I know exactly what Christopher Nolan was doing or thinking while creating this movie, but these are just some flaws that actually can be explained with just a few extra scenes. Maybe Chris Nolan thought it was best keeping this past interesting, or possibly adding this extra complexity to the enormity that is The Dark Knight Rises was too much of a hassle. While these things are the case, or could be, here are some things I think can be changed that wasn't exactly achieved in my opinion on this film. One of the scenes in this movie show Bane orchestrating a quote-unquote accident where this plane crash was supposed to kill Dr. Pavel, who created the reactor core, which we see later in the film. While this sequence is amazingly shot with real shots and no CGI, we are missing those key little details. And I'm not trying to complain or anything, but why does Bane mention no one cared who he was before he put on the mask? Or why they took the plane up in search of Bane in the first place? And perhaps this answer was simple. It was on purpose. Bane also mentions how who they are doesn't matter, but what matters is their plan. And knowing Christopher Nolan and his previous work with films, that was completely intentional. And while this actually works out, unlike The Dark Knight, this somewhat takes away from the main story. What I would do personally is not immediately, but in the small moments where Bane's history and his motive is mentioned, I would use that opportunity to add to the character, which if they did that, just add a little more to the character and not just placing him in the story. While Christopher Nolan had the best intention on ending a trilogy, he should have done what Arkham Origins did with Bane. Again, why am I talking about a character so simple and yet complex as Bane? Why make an entire video that no one really stops and thinks about, and that is simple? His narrative. Bane's narrative is so crucial to the Batman mythos, and the fact that his story and detail is only told correctly in a video game really bothers me. The Dark Knight Rises, as great as it was, got some key aspects about him, but completely took a 180 on this character entirely, while stripping and hinting at some of his comic book origin. The fact of the matter is this: Bane's whole arc and narrative is based and built on revenge. Revenge on what was taken from him. Revenge of a controlled system. Revenge to his own fear. And one thing I really wanted to get across in this video is Bane is a destroyer. Bane is a killer. Bane will break you.